Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to the Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Anaconda is over. Still no Mateo.
What is this?
Anaconda skin.
Is snakes out there this big?
This skin is 3 or 4 years old. Whatever shed it has grown since then.
Snakes don't eat people.
Oh, they don't?
That's it, man. I'm getting the hell back to L.A.
It's always good to be prepared.
Now, they are the ones being watched.
Do you hear that?
The ones being followed.
Nobody move.
The ones being hunted.
There's something down there.
That's right.
No, I really mean it.
I really mean it too.
But not by anything human.
That's on the floor!
If we help him, then he will help us get out of here alive.
Get out of my face!
You're gonna get us all killed!
It's coming down!
Anaconda. When you can't breathe, you can't scream.
Andy, once again, we come to the public with an important health advisory. Don't go into the jungle. If we've learned anything, rivers are death. And so where do you think they should go? Where is our best source of community outreach for those who need to recognize that if you can't breathe, you can't scream?
Those people, since they can't breathe, they can't scream, what they can probably still do is type. So head over to letterboxd.com. You can follow the next reel. You can follow all of our shows, read our reviews, comment on all of our different posts, and you can get into the conversation with each of the movies that we're reviewing over there. We have all the movies we've talked about on the show. We have lists of all sorts, and you can also link to the different people who are involved in the shows. And it's a great place to get in touch with those of us who are over there and continue the movie conversation.
That's what old John Voight said. Is, I wish I could type.
I feel like I heard him saying that as he was going through if you turn your subtitles on, actually, as he's being swallowed, it's like the whisper at the end of the Bill Murray movie that I'm blanking on right now. When he whispers, if you turn the subtitles on, you can just like here, you can hear turn it on, you can hear John Voight say that in the gully cam.
Yeah. Ugh. All right, Andy, here we are. We've made it to Anaconda. What's going on with this cast? Once again, I know that I'm looking at it with the gift of hindsight, but Eric Stoltz, man, what are you doing here?
All right, now we're going to have to ease up on the reins there, mister.
No, and I should, okay, let me say this out loud and up front. I had a blast with this movie. It is at times insufferable. I went into this, I had seen it only once before, and I've now seen it twice. And what I remember most from the movie, the first time I saw it, was what I like to call the cinematic Aquatic Killer. It's forgetting to get your reverse shot when you're shooting the jungle scenes and a waterfall and just deciding, you know what, let's just run that last clip back. So we have waterfall that goes up in this movie that is uncorrected, and it drives me crazy every time I see it. So beyond that, I like a lot about this movie. I think there's a collision. It is one of those movies that exists in that dark space between great cast, fun idea, terrible CG, and the fact that the CG does not yet ably line up with the hydraulic animatronic snakes in a way that does not take me out of the experience from time to time. And so it's early, and when I look at this movie, I think, I could actually see why there are more snake movies, and I would like to see even more snake movies.
Well, so there's a whole series of Anaconda movies if you want to jump in there. We almost talked about them, you may recall.
I know. And I sort of regret that we didn't, but only sort of, because this movie does not rate well for a lot of people. So there we go.
The thing about this is I have just like you, I have a total blast while watching this movie. Sure, it might seem a little bit like some of this cast is kind of jumping into the slumming it category, I suppose you could say. But also, I feel like that they were just having fun. And honestly, I mean, hey, if you got to go shoot down in Brazil on the Amazon, why not? Jump at the chance and go do something like that. And so I think that they're largely doing it because they're having fun. This movie, I don't think, is ever really taking itself too seriously. And I feel like they're, in the vein of Piranha, having fun with the material that they're exploring. And even when the CG just looks terrible, and let's face it always looks terrible. The CG
there's no place where it's fine
in this film. It's just a fun bee creature feature. You're watching this snake running around or slithering around or swimming around and killing people in and around the Amazon as they are exploring to try finding this lost tribe.
The Shummy tribe.
Yeah.
The secret of the people of the waterfall mist.
The people of the mist or whatever. Yeah.
Hooshie-mooshis.
It's just kind of silly bad movie, but it fits in there with those other creature features, and I have a blast watching it. And I feel like everybody involved knew that. I don't think anyone is taking themselves too seriously, especially John Voight. And I feel like they're allowing it to be what it is. And because of that, I appreciate it, and I have a great old time.
Well, and so here's why I want to talk about Eric Stoltz. I feel like this movie and Eric Stoltz in it is a metaphor for our modern government media landscape. You take the only doctor, the only scientist out of it, and suddenly all of it goes to hell. Right? This is a metaphor for listen to the scientists. And so protect your scientists. That's what this movie is all about. Eric Stoltz is in this movie in the beginning, and he gets to flex a little bit when Paul Cerrone shows up on the boat, telegraphing wildly his menace. And then he's gone, and he's gone for most of the movie. And that makes me sad, because I think that's a poor use of Eric Stoltz. I don't understand why I'm sure practically it has something to do with stunt casting, and we'll just put him in there, and then he won't have to bother showing up because he's probably a busy guy at that point. And let's not worry about it. That bugged me. I think it was poor casting, and it made me constantly think about, why am I not seeing more Eric Stoltz in this movie? Right?
Well, I'll be honest. He probably was just enjoying the beaches of Brazil in between his first part of shooting and his last part of shooting. Yeah. And probably just had a great time just chilling and touring around and having a grand old time. Honestly, I really don't know. It's in a period of his career where he still is largely appearing in a lot of indie films. He was working a lot with Noah Baumbach at the time. And then it was also popping up in as bit parts in things like Jerry Maguire. So, he wasn't as big, I suppose, as he was in the 80s into the 80s, early 90s. Yeah. And I think it's a point in his career where he certainly is in things still. But I find after, I don't know, I feel like even before he was in Pulp Fiction, he'd kind of faded a little bit. So I don't know. I feel like right in the early 90s, Pulp Fiction may be kind of the last thing where he was like somebody that really stood out as a name. And then after this, I feel like it was just a lot of bit parts, and he's still popping up in indie movies, but largely just in a smaller capacity. And so I feel like him popping up in here fits kind of with that. It does feel kind of stunt casting. It would probably fit in just got so that he could go off and do some indie films that probably paid him a lot less.
Yeah, that sounds about right. He's got a really weirdly rich career, all the way up to Madam Secretary. Over the last bunch of years, he had a recurring role there. I really like him for some reason, and I think it was maybe because Some Kind of Wonderful, like that. That was I am peak Eric Stoltz fan, right? This is like Eric Stoltz, John Cusack, like those were my aspirational sort of childhood guys. And so I really like, whenever I see him show up, he has a great affinity for me on screen, or I have a great affinity for him on screen. So like Eric Stoltz.
Are you the guy who wishes that he had been Marty McFly? Is that you?
Do you know, it is not, because I've seen that test footage, and he plays Marty McFly dark. That's not the movie. That's like effectively, you know what? Let's just let Cronenberg direct it. It's going to be great. Anyhow, so that's my thing with Eric Stoltz. Everybody else in this film, you talk about John Voight. John Voight, what a guy. Like, the moment he throws his bag onto their boat for their big rescue, you know exactly who he is and what he's doing. Like, he so overplays this role in a delightfully diabolical way. It makes everybody else look so stupid that they didn't see his turn coming, because we saw it when he's still waving distantly and blurry in the rain. He telegraphs so hard.
He does. But also, it just works. It's the sort of thing that I think works really well in a film like this, is that you have somebody who's just... I mean, they're obviously suspect of him from the beginning. It's just, they should have been even more suspect, because he's really up to no good, and it should be pretty clear. And he is just delicious. He's clearly having a blast. He always kind of has this smile on his face, regardless of his mood. And that always just, it just makes him feel that much more sinister when he's disagreeing with somebody or he's, going in with whatever Eric Stoltz's character has said that they have to do. And he's just like, yeah, whatever. But he still has that smile. And you know that that he's up to no good. And I find him just a very incredible asset to the film. And the fact that his last moment is as a regurgitated, somewhat corpse, possibly not, who winks at Jennifer Lopez's character. I just think that is, like, for me, the highlight of the movie. I couldn't get any better than that.
That is so awful. It's so awful that it was immediately preceded by the gullet cam, which we have yet to talk about. I think we should, because one of the great things about all of these movies is the killer cam, right? It's the killer POV.
Yeah, you're right.
And this movie, I already liked this movie because I love that they play with the axes of the snake's head in the killer cam. It's not just moving straight forward. This snake actually tilts the camera side to side, so you're moving on that. The x-axis, y-axis, what's the one across? X, Y is up and down, X is across. You're moving side to side, up and down that y-axis, and I think that's really, that makes it a lot of fun to watch that. And then peak killer POV is from inside the snake's throat as it takes John Voight into itself. It is amazing. It is amazing.
So it is the best. It really it works so well. It puts things into such kind of an over the top, campy, just a position for this film to be coming from, that by the time you get there, you're like, oh yeah, of course we're doing this. Of course we're going to jump into this camera position that's all the way up the back of this snake as it opens up to swallow John Voight's character whole.
It's the strongest snake effect in the entire movie, is inside the snake.
Well, that very well may be true. Honestly, I don't mind the puppetry. I think the animatronic puppetry works pretty well, the way that its head kind of turns and comes at you or opens up and you kind of see, I don't know, the opening of the snake mouth. It looks kind of like a snake mouth. Like you see all the little parts inside its mouth and the way that it works and everything. I think that actually is pretty effective. It's just when it goes CG, it turns into complete garbage. It is just so bad.
It's one of those, it's so bad, that's the thing that makes me want to see, and I know we're going to talk about sequels and remakes, it makes me want to see the purported reboot of this thing with technology of today. Like, I would actually love to see what they do with a snake this size and what fun they could have with a snake this size in the jungle.
Speaking of snakes this size, I did find it interesting because I've been trying to read up on these animals just a little bit each time to see, how accurate are they? Because as you may recall, this film starts with several paragraphs of expositional text that are designed to set us up in the story so we have an understanding ahead of time without having to waste time with characters talking about it, as far as what these snakes are, how big they get, just kind of the way they work. And it actually goes so far as to saying, here, let me just read a couple bits here. Anacondas are among the most ferocious and enormous creatures on Earth, growing in certain cases as long as 40 feet. Unique among snakes, they are not satisfied after eating a victim. They will regurgitate their prey in order to kill and eat again. They really set it up to sound like a horrifying creature. Yeah. Well, as it turns out, the longest recorded anaconda has been a female that was 5.21 meters or 17.1 feet long and weighed 97.5 kilograms or 215 pounds. A lot smaller than what the movie claims, as long as 40 feet. In fact, there is still currently a reward of $50,000 that's open to anyone who can catch an anaconda that's actually longer than 30 feet or 9.1 meters. People think that they are out there, but again, it's never been recorded. It's just one of those, myths of, I caught a fish this big. It's that whole thing. They only appear in South America, which is definitely something to remember when you get to Anaconda 2. because they are no longer in South America. Although that movie did get the mating balls accurate. They actually, when they're mating, a bunch of males pile onto a female and then they just coil into a ball that they'll stay in for like up to several weeks while they're all trying to mate with her. It's kind of like a horrific image, right? Yeah, one of those.
What was that, Elliot? What was that Elliot Gould movie? Frank and Ted and Alice? It's kind of like that.
Bob and Carol
Bob
and
Ted and Alice. That was
Right.
They got it right in that movie too.
Exactly. But the last bit about being regurgitating their prey in order to kill and eat again, I couldn't find anything about anacondas doing this. So I feel like they just were playing around with some facts, Fargo style, to give us information just to make us feel like these things are even more threatening than they really are.
Yeah, in this in the Anaconda cinematic universe, they do these things.
Right, exactly.
Which is fine.
Exactly.
Although I have to say, in my research, let me tell you about my little rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Which is not, if you're the rabbit, you don't want anything to do with this. So it turns out that the anaconda, what they may have been modeling this on, is a prehistoric snake called and this is it's definitely my favorite word of today, if not of all the discussion of snakes. It is the titanoboa.
That sounds like a movie that would follow along with the all the other Roger Corman creature features that he's done.
Yes. They actually managed to find a researcher at University of Toronto managed to find the largest fossil that has ever emerged out in Colombia in the Cerrejón coal mine, which is one of the world's largest open pit coal mines, and just a parade of prehistoric reptile fossils. They found a bunch of stuff there, and they actually found this a titanoboa segment, right? And because they now know that all snakes have the same number of segments overall, they can actually place based on relative sizing and, thanks to the world of computers, they can actually place where that segment would have been in this snake, and they can then extrapolate to how big and how heavy the snake was. That's the snake they're describing here. It is a natural phenomenon, and it happened to be a natural phenomenon many thousands of years ago.
Thank you, Gollum.
Yeah. It wants to regurgitate it. Yes, it does. So I found that fascinating.
And apparently you can go to the Smithsonian and see a life-size model of a titanoboa devouring a crocodilian.
Which is actually the story of Anaconda versus Lake Placid.
That's right, exactly. Where do these ideas come from?
So, interesting, right? I love it.
Absolutely. I love these things. So more than likely, that is what what our intrepid documentarians are up against. It happens to be a prehistoric version of this. And, that's the nature of these movies, right? I mean, that's what Jaws does. That's what, Piranha did to a certain extent by, just they were modified by the government. In tentacles, it was larger than it should have been because it came from some deep cave brought up by this underwater drilling, et cetera, et cetera. And so yet again, we have a creature that is a lot larger than it should be. Of course, according to the text, this is about how big they usually get. So,
well, this is the most important thing that I feel like I just need to make note of because of our series. We're trying to focus on snakes that exist, and I think snakes that existed is still fair. This is a snake that was not played with by humans. It was not radioactive. It was not a lab experiment. It was modeled after a real snake. At some point, they got something right.
So in terms of this big anaconda, and let's just assume it's this kind of titanoboa size, where do you rank this paired with this versus kind of the piranha versus the octopus? What are you, at this point, most afraid of?
I still think... so here's I still think ultimately piranha. So I'll end with that because of that swarm behavior.
Okay.
But the snake thing, anacondas have always given me pause because of the way they crush your bones. right? They and the tagline of this movie nails it, right? When you can't breathe, you can't scream. So that they squeeze, and every time you breathe out, they squeeze tighter so that you can't inhale anymore, and that's eventually they crush you. And that does give me anxiety a little bit. I don't like it. I don't care for just imagining it. I still think piranha are and who do you think would win? A swarm, a school of hungry, bloodthirsty piranha, or the giant snake?
I mean, that's I think that it would fall to the piranha, because if that snake's in the water and the piranha start kind of attacking it, I would assume, just swim to get away, because like I kind of talked about in our piranha episode, it's like attacking, same thing like in the Star Trek Beyond the film. The snake can attack a fish, but it's going to bite one fish, and then it'll have to go after another, and then another. Meanwhile, dozens or hundreds of others are nibbling away at its flesh. And so I don't think that the snake is going to have a chance if it can't get out of the water. That being said, personally, I think I may be more afraid of the snake. I feel like the piranha, at least there, I feel like I have a fighting chance. Like if I happen to be in the water, at least I know I can try to swim to the shore and get out, right? If that snake starts wrapping itself around me, I know I'm pretty much screwed. And after watching this movie and seeing it doesn't just like squeeze you until you suffocate, it also squeezes so hard it crushes your bones.
Right. And it pops your head. Yeah, it's
pretty gnarly. So I personally would say the snake.
Well, and the other thing that sort of resets is that I did watch an episode of River Monsters, in which the host of that show ended up actually putting bloody meat in a hot tub filled with hungry red-bellied piranha and blood, and they went crazy for that. And then as they are swimming around in this cloud of bloody water, he puts on his bathing suit and gets in it.
Oh, no, stop.
Yeah, no, he does that. But this is the thing, Andy. They do nothing to him.
Wow.
They do nothing. Nothing at all. They're just fish. They just are fish.
Yeah.
Because he acknowledges, he says, no, I don't know. I'm not going to cut myself and get in here.
Sure.
Like, I don't necessarily want them to do that. But also it was very clear that it's the wound that kills you.
Sure.
So anyway.
That's just, the things people do for TV and for ratings. Like, even if there's a chance it's going to bite, I'm not going to take it.
Right. Right. Okay. So I'm with you on the opening expositional text. I think that was, I'm watching this and I had forgotten the regurgitation, and that text as the foreshadow, they will regurgitate their prey in order to kill and eat again. Oh, that is the most perfect setup for that effect at the end. It works really well.
And actually, it also, I think, makes the snake more effective, because I think if people know much about snakes, it's that like once they feed or like eat something, one, they can hardly move because now they have whatever size animal it was in their body, which kind of weighs them down. And they're so swollen that they just kind of lay there on the ground while their body slowly digests it. It takes a long time to digest that sort of stuff. And so by allowing it to have this regurgitation tool in the film, it allows it to attack, kill somebody, and then say, you know what, I want to keep attacking and killing more people. I'm going to spit this thing out and I'm going to go after you and just keep going. And that makes it much more threatening. So I actually think it amplifies the threat in a way that you wouldn't necessarily get in a movie with a giant snake that's going to kill somebody, then go off to digest for like 4 days.
Yeah, right. And I think that's why it allows the movie to have these like highlight CG scenes. Like, for example, after the snake eats and is swimming, and we have that camera pass where you see the skin tightened shape of Mateo.
Owen Wilson, yeah.
Or of Owen Wilson, that's right. Yeah. Owen Wilson in the belly. And now you kind of get a sense. Now, I don't necessarily believe that snake would be swimming quite as agilely through the water as it is with that person in it. But I also now, have this sense that it would have maybe vomited it up to go attack the boat again.
Yeah, right.
So it's all fine. It's fine.
We're all fine here. I do like that, they're acknowledging, I think, the genre. One, we should say it's not just a Jaws ripoff. I think generally ripoffs are going to happen within the first couple years after a film comes out. And here we are, 1997, well after 75. So I think it's safe to say that they're not ripping it off anymore. But I do love that they're acknowledging the kind of just the world that they're living in, that Eric Stoltz early on has a joke about piranha in the water. And I just thought that was kind of a funny little nod to their predecessors. I
do too. Yeah, this is a straight up monster, like man versus nature monster movie, right? I mean, it's not. I know that there are tropes. I know I don't have a specific trope corner planned. I know there are tropes in here, but I also I feel like they're horror movie tropes, like monster movie tropes, and not necessarily rip off tropes.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there are tropes that we're running into here.
Well, I mean, just in characterization alone, we've got a bevy of them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you've got the villain who is completely over the top evil, and that's I think one rule right there. And then I think that just the nature of kind of the killer POV cam. I mean, that's a trope we're falling into. A lot of the sort of stuff that happens in these sorts of movies, the way that people get picked off, et cetera, et cetera.
But much more forgivable because it's not a ripoff of, something quite so proximate to Jaws.
One thing that I do think is another example of tropes is we have a couple who decide to walk off into the jungle in the darkness to have some nookie, only to have a moment where they get chased down by a mystery creature, which might be the killer, it might not be, we don't know, only to be saved by, as they, it's a trope in and of itself. Going off into the dark is totally a horror movie trope, right? And that's how people get killed. But then you have them, as they're fleeing, they stop at something that also surprises them, only to have the camera cut to reveal that it's one of the, quote, good guys who is there to help them. And in this case, it's Sharon, who's got his gun and he's ready to shoot what it is, which happens to be a big wild boar.
If the boar could swim, it would be an aquatic killer. Because I saw and read Hannibal, and let me tell you,
those
pigs are tough. They eat like tin cans, man. You don't want to mess with. You don't want to mess with those things.
Absolutely.
They're land piranhas, actually, I think is the name for them. If you get a lot of them together, they're just land piranhas, a swarm of land piranha. Just wild pig.
I live in a place with a lot of javelina, which is similar. And
that's effectively
you don't want to be out walking your dog and come across any pack of javelina, because they will attack. They can attack for sure. So,
really? Have you ever run into javelina, like on the street?
Not in my neighborhood, but we know somebody who has had that happen and had to take their dog to the vet because the javelina attacked it and gored it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible. I shouldn't be smiling.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It is terrible.
You live in a weird place.
I know, it's terrible. Just
okay.
Terrible.
So what is that thing on the ground after the anaconda kills the jaguar?
What was that? It's like, okay, so you have the Black Panther or the jaguar in the forest there. And I mean, it's kind of a fun scene because that is one of the kind of the top, like, apex predators in the forest, I would argue.
Yeah.
And then to have that kind of attacked by the anaconda and crushed and eaten, it's pretty horrific to kind of see. It works effectively though. But yeah, then there's like some red thing on the ground, and I was like, what is that?
It's the jaguar's eyeball.
Oh, I didn't see it pop out. Okay.
It popped out.
Wow, I
popped right out.
Totally missed that.
Yeah, it's not. That's gross. It's awful. It's so gross, and especially because I don't know what happened to their jaguar, like animatronic, their jaguar puppet. But there is, if you freeze frame and like walk through this scene, there is there's a sequence that I swear to God is a jaguar going auga, like its eyes open and its mouth opens and its tongue kind of hangs out. Zoinks is what the jaguar is saying, and then it gets squeezed and its eyeball comes out.
Yeah, yep.
It's so awful. Okay.
I feel like we should go through some tropes. We've been doing them, and I just got a few that I had marked down that I want to run through.
Okay.
We have our toward the beginning, Danny Trejo, who he doesn't really get a chance to speak. He's just this poacher at the beginning, and he's got a boat full of animals, and he's cornered by this anaconda, although we never see it. It's all just kind of the POV as it's coming. And I think it's a bit of a trope, that whole better to die than be killed by some more potentially torturous and painful way. And so he kills himself there up on the mast.
Totally relate. Yep. Absolutely relate. Would have done the same.
Let's see. Do that or be crushed and swallowed and slowly digested.
Yep.
Let's see. We've got the a subversion of the token black guy getting killed off first, right?
Right.
We actually have Danny. He's actually one of our survivors, which is nice to see.
Right.
Paired with him, we have the stuffy British person, which I think is possibly the tropiest of tropey characters that we have here. He's over the top. I mean, he's basically is Snidely Whiplash and just needs to be a little more villainous, and he can be twirling this.
I wonder
mustache.
what David Attenborough would say to you about that, because that's really who he's trying to be, right? This whole like film crew. This is a BBC documentary.
It's Nat Geo,
right?
I believe, right?
It is Nat Geo, but I'm just saying, like, this is what he's been known for like 35 years.
Sure.
And they lampoon him in this movie, which I think is pretty good.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
We have the villain who is always happy to backstab his own partners. We see that Sharon certainly does that with Mateo. And we don't know if he set up Danny Trejo's character, but certainly there was something that had gone on between the two of them, right?
Right. And it's I think it was like, my sense is they were all poachers and they just lost control. I felt like, especially because we saw that picture in the newspaper in the boat, like it feels like it was he and Mateo kind of keeping the thing going.
Well, I think it was he and Danny Trejo were, because Mateo was back. Like it almost seemed like Mateo had quit or something and was now just working as a boatman for people or something. Okay. And then I don't know. Then it seemed like the Anaconda took Danny Trejo and he was left. But he certainly is totally fine kind of stabbing Mateo in the back and basically leaving him there to be taken, right?
Right.
That's definitely kind of a very tropey thing for your bad guy. Just so you know, he's extra bad.
Yeah, he's super bad.
Yeah. And then I think that's basically what I had written down as far as I could probably come up with some others, but that's
bad guys have great accents. I mean, this is the long history of Hans Gruber and what's his name from Lethal Weapon 3 and now John Voight here
as the Paraguayan. Yeah.
It's just over the top.
It's over the top. And, I just find that it works really well. And maybe it's just because it's John Voight. I just totally buy into everything that he's doing.
Well, interestingly, what about Jennifer Lopez? Like, we haven't even, that's the first time I think we've said her name. And she is the sort of central figure around which all of this spins.
Right.
What do you think of J-Lo in this movie?
I think she's fine. This was early in her film career. She hadn't quite kicked in a whole lot yet. I think that it was Selena, right? That was the one that really kind of allowed her to make that name for herself a little more, and which is a great film. But I mean, she had been in other things, like she was in My Family, Mi Familia, which is really good. She was in Money Train, and And Selena was like right before this. They both came out at the same time. And U-Turn later this year, which is a fantastic Oliver Stone movie. And so I feel like this was the year where she really started kind of popping as a lead, because the very next year she's in Out of Sight. And it just kind of goes from there. So I feel like this was just kind of peak Jennifer Lopez as leading lady material. And I feel like she handles it really well. I have no issues with her. I feel like she's great in this action heroine role. I think she does a great job here.
Well, and she's so strong, right? Physically, she's so strong. She looks great in the jungle when she's pulling on ropes and carrying that gun. And they have a lot of great Jennifer Lopez like hero shots with her just sort of showing off her arms and how much like tone work she had done to do this movie. I think she just looks great. She's strong. She's not whelpy at all. Like, even though they dance around this relationship with Eric Stoltz to the credit of the script, they could have made this schmaltzy thing, allowing Eric Stoltz to stick around and be the hero to her simpering heroine. And they didn't do that, right? I mean, they get him out of the way, so she has to take more room to own the entire situation. And I think she does as a director. Like, she's in this film project. I think she has a nice handle on it, right? She's competent. She exudes competence.
Absolutely.
In the movie, which is something that's unique to these films.
Now, could you see Gillian Anderson or Juliana Margulies playing the role? Because they were the first choices to play the part. It was Terry Porter was the character's original name. They both couldn't do it because of scheduling conflicts with their TV shows that they were each in before J-Lo signed on. But can you picture them in it, or do you feel like as you watch this, I can only see J-Lo in it now?
I don't think this is one of those movies that is where J-Lo is inseparable from the title. You know what I mean? Like, I can see both of those actors in the piece. Maybe Gillian Anderson more than Juliana Margulies, who I think very highly of. I think they're both fantastic. But I think they could jump in here and play a strong National Geographic director.
Yeah,
this is not one of those pivotal roles. And you take this as an example of one of those, like, it's a puzzle you can put different pieces in, compared to Out of Sight. I cannot see anyone else playing that role.
Sure,
in Out of Sight than J-Lo.
I agree. J-Lo really feels like she is the part. Now, how about Jean Reno as Cerrone, John instead of John Voight? Because he was the person originally considered for that role. Yeah,
I struggle with that one because I do like John Voight, but I really like Jean Reno in these kinds of roles. And I think he would have been so fun to see in this movie.
I think he would have been fun. Obviously, he would have been coming in as a Frenchman instead of a Paraguayan, I suppose. Yep. But boy, I tell you, what John Voight ended up bringing to the table, I mean, as much as I love Reno, I just feel like I'd hate to see anyone else other than Voight do it, because I think Voight is he's over the top and clearly just having a great time. Yeah,
I agree. Although, and maybe I have more of an affinity for Reno in this kind of character after Defy Bloods, right? Like, I like seeing him as a crime lord. I think it would have been fun to see him as like a street level, like, poaching villain.
Yeah.
I think that could have been really fun.
I feel like, weirdly, I feel like he's typecast for that. I feel like that's popped up a number of times in his career, which is kind of funny. No, and then, so Ice Cube, we haven't really mentioned too much, but he plays Danny in this film. And I will say it's great to see that our white guy gets kind of knocked out for the duration of the film. And we end up with Jennifer Lopez and Ice Cube as our two who have to kind of not only defeat Voight as a problem who's kind of coming after them and trying to basically sacrifice them to the Anaconda, or use them as bait by covering them in monkey blood. But they have to stop him and then the Anaconda. I think it is really fun to kind of see that play out like that. Yeah, the movie is wonderfully diverse, sort of narratively woke. It's kind of funny too that they're both fighting a snake. Like, I don't know. I have this whole sort of Eden vibe. Like, it's like, Adam and Eve and the snake. And in this case, they're like, oh, yes, the Latina and the black guy are going to have to fight the ultimate, like, white person horror reptile, like, just
It's just really great. So I have a lot of fun with that. And Ice Cube is, he might be our most talked about actor for 2020.
I feel like he may be, after having covered him in all of the Friday films, which
Plus
is
this.
very fun.
Yeah.
Plus this, yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Jonathan Hyde is Warren, the pompous British host of the show. Owen Wilson, we already said. Kerry Wurr is the production manager, and Vincent Castellanos is Mateo. And then, of course, Pete, Frank Welker.
Wow. Frank. My God, is that amazing?
It's so funny that I think last week we were talking about Piranha, and we're like, oh, we have to pay attention to the noises that they use for the animals as to like, what are they going to add to it to kind of amp it up a little bit. And
it's Frank Welker.
In my head, I was like, I don't think they do anything for this other than just hissing. Boy, was I wrong. Yeah, they bring in Frank Welker, one of the most famous voice actors out there for cartoons and all sorts of strange little animal noises like this. And here he is giving us the noises, the screams, all the other things that the Anaconda makes. It was
so good.
Fun to see his name in there.
We haven't mentioned mentioned our fair director.
Yeah. Luis Llosa is the director. He's a Peruvian filmmaker who, I think most of the stuff, he started out doing stuff that was very Roger Corman-esque. In fact, I think he jumped in after coming to America into Corman's films. And he did like Hour of the Assassin, Crime Zone, and then he did Sniper, another Amazon film called 800 Leagues Down the Amazon, and then Fire on the Amazon. And then leading into The Specialist with Sylvester Stallone and Sharon Stone, James Woods, Eric Roberts, and then this, and then The Feast of the Goat. And then from what I can tell, he has not really done much else. I think he may have gone back to Peru and now is doing some telenovelas.
Yeah, a ton of production credits on these things. I mean, these shows that are hundreds of episodes, over 100 episodes on like everything that he's done since 2004.
Daily soaps, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. So he's a producer on a lot of these things. So he has a sense of jungle horror.
I think so. And if you look at his filmography, clearly Roger Corman tapped into that. And I think that I think it works well for what he was doing here. His film career in and of itself is pretty small, but I think he made enough of a mark to get this film noticed and, kind of continue his career doing other things.
But Andy, the upward waterfall, I mean, come on. I can't believe I get to rant about that and you've said nothing.
I mean, it is a terrible bit of editing that they did. And, who knows? They just needed to have the shot going one way and they were hoping that nobody would notice that. And it was before the day of digital replacements, because I guarantee, give it, 20 more years, if that had been a film getting made any time now, they would very easily have fixed that in post, been able to kind of keep everything else in the shot going the way they wanted, and then fix the waterfall, and it wouldn't have been an issue. I just feel like it's one of those things where they probably were hoping people would notice, but it's a noticeable thing. It's a really noticeable thing. Yeah,
it's really too bad. It's a noticeable thing, and they should really, when you watch it, you get rid of that shot. You just get rid of the shot. The transition between time and place happens automatically in your head, and you don't need the shot. You don't need to show the boat backing up. It's one of those things that's so easily fixable, and it just hurts my heart that they didn't, that they made the choice to let that go.
Yeah.
So frustrating.
Yeah, it's a frustrating little bit of production, and it's one of those things that I feel like this film has gone down as the film with the the waterfall that goes up. It's like those stops along the highway. See the largest ball of twine. See the waterfall that goes up. Like that points to this film.
That's right. That's exactly what it does. Bill Butler behind the camera. Again, I think the camera work in this thing was solid. I felt like there were enough nice little tricks around the snake cam, the kill POV, that I think it allows the camera work to kind of be a standout bit of performance.
Bill Butler is 99 years old.
Yeah.
And he was born in Cripple Creek, Colorado, Pete.
Hey,
look at
neighborhood. he's still shooting at 2016.
That's
Boys
what I
at
was
the Bar.
about to say. It's like, what is he still doing? I mean, take a break, enjoy it. But I mean, the last thing that I saw that he had done probably was Frailty, which was a film I really enjoyed. But wow, I mean, just going back through the work that he did in the 70s, working with...
Well, let's just talk about his top 4, shall we? Right?
Sure.
I mean, Deliverance,
right.
Grease, Anaconda, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Very strong, very strong.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's somebody who's been around a long time. And Jaws, I mean, we talked about him when we did Jaws, and he did The Conversation, and he did, what was the, Rocky 2. I think we mentioned him on Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, those Rocky films. So, somebody who has been around.
Music, Randy Edelman. What do you think of Randy's score here? Anything stand out to you?
It's fun. It didn't strike me as one that I wanted to start listening to all the time. But I think in context of the film, it works well. It's just fun. It fits the genre. I don't think that it's too special, but it works just fine for what it is.
He's I think, a great composer, orchestrator, and he's been on a lot of fantastic projects. This one, it to me, it feels like some good generic jungle horror stuff. There are no themes in here that I walked away singing.
No, but it feels
appropriate.
Like it's got kind of that jungly sort of sound to it. Kind of tribal drums, etc. It works. It works.
I mean, some of our native wushy tribal. Never mind.
Shimishama.
Yeah, hushy mushy. How do we do in sequels? I mean, what counts as a sequel on this thing? It's like a family tree. This is like the seed at the base of a family tree.
I did watch the second film because it was one that did get a theatrical release.
This is the Blood Orchid, right?
Anaconda's The Hunt for the Blood Orchid.
Yeah.
I did watch that one. And, it was fun. It works well. It's not great, but I think in context of kind of these sorts of horror films, it's fine. It is fine. It does okay. The biggest sin it has is that it takes place in Borneo, where there are no anacondas. So I don't know what's going on there, but hey, whatever, it still works. So Anaconda's The Hunt for the Blood Orchid was the second film in the list of sequels here. But in our whole film series, then it spins off into Anaconda 3, Offspring, Anaconda's Trail of Blood, and then we get into the crossover, which is Lake Placid versus Anaconda.
So that was Anaconda 5. What is it for Lake Placid?
That is the fifth film in the Lake Placid film series.
So it's 5 and 5. That was their
but Lake Placid
crossover.
Has one more. Lake Placid ends up having Lake Placid Legacy. So between the two, there would be a total of 10 films.
Fascinating. Okay.
Oh, and I didn't mention this, but they have been talking about rebooting this, as you kind of mentioned. Just earlier this year, in fact, Sony said that they were actually starting to develop this with screenwriter Evan Doherty, who was hired to write a reboot for this film. So who knows what the status of that is anymore in these COVID days, but it is possible we may see more Anacondas theatrically at some point in the future.
I'll take it. How to do it award season. Big award movie.
Well, surprisingly, it does have nominations, 6 wins and 11 other nominations. Over the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror, the Saturn Awards, it was nominated for Best Horror Film and Best Actress. It lost in both categories. The horror film that won was The Devil's Advocate, which I would agree with. And the Best Actress was Jodie Foster in Contact, and I would certainly agree with that. Over at the Razzies, this is where it won its awards, Pete. Or actually, I shouldn't say that. It actually lost all of the awards at the Razzies. But it was nominated for 6 awards at the Razzies. Worst Picture, but lost to The Postman. Worst Actor, John Voight, but lost to Kevin Costner in The Postman. The Worst Screen Couple, I love this, John Voight and the animatronic Anaconda. But lost to Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dennis Rodman in Double Team.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Worst director lost to Kevin Costner in The Postman. Worst screenplay lost to The Postman. And the worst new star was the animatronic Anaconda, was nominated, but lost to Dennis Rodman, also in Double Team.
Huh.
Over at the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards, John Voight, however, did win an award. It actually tied for the most annoying fake accent. He also won for worst supporting actor. And then interestingly, just to show that there were some people who did appreciate what they were doing with the snake, John Nelson, who was involved in the animation, he won over the World Animation Celebration for the best 3D character or creature animation. So even though it looks fake for the time,
it just goes to show how sort of out there the work was to actually push the snake forward the way that they did. Like, they did great work. It does not hold up right now, and that's okay.
No. Yeah. But in 1997, I probably bought it a lot more than I do now.
I'm sure I did.
Yeah.
How to do the box up.
Well, Llosa's snake film certainly is a jumping cost from our previous two films. This one cost $45 million, or $72 million in today's dollars. The movie was released April 11th, 1997, opposite Grosse Pointe Blank, Keys to Tulsa, and Paradise Road. It opened at the number one spot, which it held for 2 weeks, and stayed in the top 10 for 7 weeks before slowing down. This movie went on to make $65.8 million domestically and $71.4 million internationally, earning a total of $219.6 million in today's dollars. That gives the film an adjusted profit per finished minute of $1.6 million, but because it cost so much, it only earned 3 times its budget, making it the least profitable one on the list so far.
Oh, that kind of makes me sad. I expected this one to have done better.
Well, hey, it still made a lot of money, so I think we're okay on in that regard.
All right. Well, I'm glad we have it in the list. We now have snakes, fish, and octopus.
And a shark.
And the shark. And we are marching forward in our list of aquatic killers. Before we can reveal what aquatic killer number 5 is, we have to take it to Flickchart.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel. You'll see the list of movies that we've talked about on this show. Swipe over in your show notes and tap the word Flickchart, and that'll take you straight to this movie in the Flickchart catalog, where you can add it to your list and see how it stands up against ours.
First up, Anaconda, or Il Postino, the Postman.
You know, I was thinking about the Postman. The Kevin Costner Postman.
You were like, what would Pablo Neruda have written if he had come across the Anaconda?
Still no Matteo. I was thinking that in Italy, was the Postman released as the Postman, parentheses, Il Postino? I'm going to go Anaconda.
Oh, I'm going to go the Postman.
Oh, wait, no. No, I'm definitely going with the Postman. I suddenly I was in my head, it was the wrong Postman. Sorry.
That is very funny. That is very funny. Interestingly, Kevin Costner's film was also called Il Postino.
Right. I got very confused.
Anaconda, or Christmas in July.
Christmas in July, I think.
Totally, Christmas in July. Anaconda, or Bull Durham.
Anaconda.
I gotta go Bull Durham.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Rock.
Paper.
Okay.
Bull Durham takes it.
All right.
Anaconda, or the Little Drummer Girl.
Anaconda.
Anaconda, please.
Nice.
I'd like to see Diane Keaton take on the Anaconda.
Not on her best day.
Anaconda, or the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Anaconda never sang.
And he didn't,
that is the equivalent, right, of Bert.
That's what Frank Welker was doing. I'm pretty sure it was an Anaconda musical. If we only were parcel tongues, Pete.
You should actually hear it underwater. Once it was designed for underwater. Right. I'm going to go with Anaconda.
I'm going to go with Anaconda as well. Anaconda, or the French Lieutenant's Woman. Huh, I haven't seen that pop up.
Wow.
I will say the French Lieutenant's Woman.
Yeah, I think I will too.
Anaconda, or We're No Angels.
We're No Angels.
What a delightful film. I will say We're No Angels as well. Anaconda, or The Dead Zone. I will say The Dead Zone.
I think The Dead Zone. Yeah. Although you have
That's
to say,
I go back and forth on. But
this movie, I mean, just on pacing alone, Dead Zone is a lot slower.
It is slower. It is slower.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Anaconda. I'm going to be. I'm still
going to stick with The Dead Zone still.
All right.
Here we go. I will say, Martin Sheen, he and John Voight could almost go toe to toe as their over the top villains.
100%. Yes. All right.
Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Scissors.
Paper.
All right, there we go.
Anaconda takes it. Anaconda, or Christmas in Connecticut.
Christmas in Connecticut.
Yeah, I'll take Christmas in Connecticut. Well, that puts Anaconda in spot 427 on our chart. 427 out of 473. That's pretty low. It lands at a 10% on our chart.
Yeah, that's pretty low. It did better on mine. I mean, not a lot better, but it did better. Where did it land on yours? Did it crack 30%?
It definitely did better on my chart. I mean, it's a film I have a ton of fun with. You know, it's not a great film, but it's an easy watch and just a blast. I just have so much fun. And with his Razzie nominations and all, I just have a blast watching John Voight in this. It landed in spot 1530 out of 4489, or 66% for me.
Wow, that's great. I think I must have been suffering some flick chart issues, because it landed at 891 for me out of 1471, which is a 39%. If I'm to go by the algorithm over at letterboxd.com/thenextreel, that should be a 2-star for me. I don't think it's a 2-star movie. I think it's a solid 3-star movie. I have a lot of fun, and there are still some things that are, it is the kind of movie that it is.
Very true. It is the kind of movie that it is. Same thing for me. I'm 3 stars and a heart.
Big heart. Yeah.
I have so much fun with this one in all of its cheesy B-movie glory. I think that they knew what it was, and I certainly know what it is, and I have fun time with it. So there it is.
All right. Andy, 4 down.
No, we're only halfway through.
I know.
We're only 3 down.
Well, because I'm including Jaws.
Oh, if you throw Jaws in, yes. It was done a while ago, but yes.
So, what is our next aquatic killer?
Well, we're going to move into the northeast of the United States, and we're going to be fighting a giant crocodile. It is the film Lake Placid, Steve Miner's film from 1999, written by David E. Kelly with Bridget Fonda, Bill Pullman, Oliver Platt. It is, we're going to be seeing some big mouths eating people in a lake. Lake Placid in Maine, I believe is where it's set.
That's Steve Miner.
Steve Miner.
We like him.
He's been a guest on the show, and we talked about with him about one of his favorites on the Speakeasy. We talked about the Philadelphia Story.
That guy, he contains multitudes. Am I right? Anyway,
certainly does.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Amazon giveth, Andrew.
As Amazon always doeth.
I can't believe it. I am on Amazon, and you are not? Where could you possibly have gone?
Off of it. I jumped over to Letterboxd just to see what sort of reviews people had over there.
Okay. I feel like you should go first, unless you really want to go second. Do you want to unveil second? Get me out of the way? What do you want?
I'm totally fine going first.
All right, go ahead.
My review is a 4-star by Dirk H., who says, "Let's be honest, this movie sucks ass. Let's be honest, us true cinephiles, we don't care. Let's be honest, John Voight produces the Mona Lisa of overindulgent, campy B-movie performances. Let's be honest, we were all rooting for the snake."
That's awesome. I'm going to say I'm in the same territory, at least for you over at Amazon. Mine comes from Amazon customer with a 5-star review. And the title is John Voight's Accent Saves This Film. It is a masterpiece of genre satire. Anaconda, posing as a blatantly bad 90s action flick, ripples with political commentary strewn through the movie. As a metaphor for everything from the Vietnam War to childhood obesity, this film shines. John Voight was snubbed from an Oscar nomination for his portrayal of a maybe South American, I don't know, Amazon snake hunter. His performance leaves nothing to be desired. 5 stars. Also, Ice Cube does the music for the film in a cappella. Well played, a customer.
So good.
Thanks, Amazon. hard to believe we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You're telling me. Producing this show week after week is so much fun, but it does require a lot of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchase is made through our links. Give us a small commission at no extra cost to you, and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
We covered a lot of great movies that were adapted from other material in Season 10.
Our Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals is where listeners can purchase the source material behind all our adapted film discussions. It helps support the show at no extra cost when you buy through our links.
In our foreign language Best Picture nominees series, we looked at several adaptations, including Z, The Postman Il Postino, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Letters from Iwo Jima.
We hit the high seas with In the Heart of the Sea from Nathaniel Philbrick's nonfiction book for our Aquatic Killers series.
Definitely a weaker entry in that series.
I bet the book is better.
Oh, me too.
Member bonus episodes featured adaptations like Gone Girl, The Russia House, Ivanhoe, The Hot Rock, The Big Heat, and Naked Lunch.
Oliver Stone brought not just original stories, but also adaptations like Conan the Barbarian, Scarface, Year of the Dragon, 8 Million Ways to Die, Talk Radio, and Born on the 4th of July.
Mary Herron's disturbingly insightful American Psycho was adapted from the Bret Easton Ellis book.
You like Huey Lewis in the News?
Oh my God, it even has a watermark.
And of course, more Stephen King with The Mist, The Green Mile, and The Shawshank Redemption for our King a la Darabont series.
Find links to all of these books and more adapted films on our Originals page. That's thenextreel.com/originals. Every purchase supports our show.
Get the full list of books that we've talked about and start your next read today at thenextreel.com/originals.